It's a warm summer night in Los Angeles. Inside a beautiful home on Cielo Drive, 26-year-old Sharon Tate, 8.5 months pregnant, laughs softly with her friends. The house is filled with warmth, with the kind of joy that only comes from new life on the horizon. But outside, something evil is lurking. Suddenly, the front door bursts open. In mere moments, the air is filled with screams, followed by the chilling echoes of violence. What should have been a night of peace and anticipation turns into a horror scene so gruesome that even the most hardened detectives would later struggle to describe it. The world was about to be introduced to the twisted mind of Charles Manson. On November 12, 1934, Charles Manson was born in Cincinnati, Ohio, to a 16-year-old girl named Kathleen Maddox. She was an alcoholic and a drifter, barely more than a child herself, and utterly unprepared for motherhood. From the very beginning, Manson's life was marked by instability. His biological father, a man named Colonel Walker Scott, abandoned Kathleen before Charles was even born. Left to raise her son alone, Kathleen spiraled into petty crime and heavy drinking. At one point, she reportedly attempted to trade her infant son for a pitcher of beer at a local bar, an act that symbolized the deep neglect that would define his early years. When Manson was just 5 years old, his mother was arrested and sentenced to prison for armed robbery, leaving him to bounce between uncaring relatives and state institutions. These early experiences, rooted in rejection, abuse, and a complete absence of stability, shaped the young boy who would later grow into one of the most notorious cult leaders in American history. From an early age, Manson learned one lesson: the world was cruel and survival meant manipulation. By the time he was a teenager, Manson was already an expert at deception, bouncing between juvenile detention centers and reformatories. He honed his skills in psychological manipulation, charming those around him while hiding his true intentions. By the time he was in his 20s, Manson had spent more than half his life behind bars. But in prison, he found something new: an obsession with control. In the mid-1960s, Manson found himself in San Francisco, just as the hippie movement was taking off. With his piercing stare and a twisted interpretation of spirituality, he began gathering followers, young, impressionable individuals searching for meaning. He promised them enlightenment, a utopia free from society's rules. In reality, he was training them for something far darker. Manson convinced his family that he was the second coming of Christ, sent to lead them through an impending race war he called Helter Skelter. His followers believed every word. Under his spell, they abandoned their families, morals, and, ultimately, their humanity. On the night of August 8, 1969, Manson gave the order that would forever stain history. He sent a group of his followers, Tex Watson, Susan Atkins, and Patricia Krenwinkel, to the home of Roman Polanski and his pregnant wife, Sharon Tate. Their instructions? Kill everyone inside. Brutally. What followed was pure horror. Sharon Tate, pleading for the life of her unborn child, was brutally stabbed 16 times. The killers then painted messages in blood on the walls, echoing the twisted ideology Manson had drilled into their minds. The next night, they struck again, murdering Leno and Rosemary LaBianca in the same brutal fashion. The message was clear: no one was safe from Charles Manson's reach. When Manson was finally arrested, his trial became a media circus. He carved an X into his forehead, later turning it into a swastika. He laughed in court, mocked the families of the victims, and even attempted to control his followers from behind bars. But here's what many don't know: Manson never actually killed anyone himself. He manipulated others into doing his bidding, proving that his true weapon wasn't a knife or a gun, but his ability to control minds. Even decades after his conviction, his influence remained. Some of his followers still believed in him. Some even tried to get him released. His chilling legacy of psychological dominance and evil still fascinates and horrifies us to this day. In the end, the only questions left behind was, what made Manson so powerful? Was he simply a master manipulator? Or was there something supernatural about his ability to control people? How did a small-time criminal with no real power command such blind loyalty? Even after his death in 2017, the shadow of Charles Manson still lingers. His story isn't just about murder. It's about the terrifying power of influence, the fragility of the human mind, and the darkness that can fester when the wrong person holds the reins. And that's the true horror of Charles Manson. Share your thoughts about him in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.